gonna like Mario. I just want to see. Do you have Aaron McPartland's name is not on there. I don't know how she got cut off. Aaron.
How did all these people get it?
Well, the press release, they put, there's people from East Toledo Family Center, Cherry Street Mission.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. You are leaders of our republic, citizens who care, and we are going to do sort of a formal press conference. We thank you for being here. You warmed up the room, that's for sure. And we're very glad to have you. We'll have several speakers, and we'll try to do it in order to kind of give an update on what's happening at the national level and how it impacts our community. So we're going to get started. And I want to thank the press for being here. They're telling me there's another guest that is here.
Aaron McPartland.
Oh, okay. Where? Oh, all right. Okay. So let me begin by saying that we are here to kind of give an update about what is happening in Washington with the executive branch, though I can't predict everything they're going to do, and to say that in the recent election, the American people voted to make America great again. They didn't vote for chaos or havoc or confusion. They didn't vote for a government of billionaires, by billionaires, and for billionaires, while benching most everyone else. When you do your work in Congress, you expect some level of shenanigans and disorder. It characterizes the place. But what we witnessed over the weekend and then yesterday was the president's decisions to jeopardize lifelines to the American people and impede progress by manufactured, unnecessary chaos. But it's a part of the plan, so just get ready. In our nation today, we are faced with a new order of kingpins. Just a handful of billionaires. Think about this. The top 1% of earners in our country, the top 1%, now hold more in wealth than the bottom half of our people. And that includes most of the region I represent. A handful of just 1% of earners holds that much wealth. 6 of them were at the recent Trump-Vance inaugural. Of those 6 that were there, including Elon Musk, they control 20% of the world's entire wealth. That's even hard to think about. And they also control most news networks in this country. What they want is $4 trillion in tax cuts out of the Congress of the United States, taken out of the hides of the American people, and that's why you're here today, because we will fight with every inch of strength we have against that wealth transfer in this country. For the record, you've probably noticed the price of eggs has not gone down. The president hasn't talked about eggs yet. The price has actually gone up. Meanwhile, more huge mansions are being built by hedge fund managers who are moving from Wall Street as we speak here today down to Mar-a-Lago, and those mansions get bigger and more gaudy. Here in Ohio, in this region and everywhere in Ohio, property taxes have just shot up at an enormous rate. But that's true in many states, not just here. The state of Ohio could do a lot to help, but I don't know, they have blinders on, I guess. And counties are being impacted, not just ours. For the American people and their budgets, something is very out of whack. And in Washington, and I'm going to take just a couple minutes to explain what's happened over the last several months, the federal government, rather than doing its job, paused. It just stopped. to create more chaos. And you might say, why would they want to do that? Well, I serve, as you know, in the U.S. House of Representatives, the closest instrument at the federal level to the American people. And last year, 2024, without finishing our nation's budget for this year of 2025, the Speaker of the U.S. House, Mr. Johnson of Louisiana, took time last fall and spent money to travel here to this district to campaign against me. That was interesting. But what he didn't do was his job. And his job was to pass the budget for this year of 2025 by September 30th of last year. Okay? So our federal government has been on autopilot since October 1st of last year, which is not fair to you, to the American people, nor federal workers across every agency and department. So Johnson, to paper over his own failures, merely stretched the old 2024 budget, he just stretched it, okay, until March 15th of this year. So we're living in 2025, but there actually isn't a budget for 2025. So this chaos is purposefully concocted. And as I said many times, last year, if Johnson and his colleagues that hold the gavel can't get their work done on time, they shouldn't be paid. If they were doing their work in a timely manner, they would be sending the Congress their proposed fiscal year 2026 right now, the spring. In the spring of the new year, you send the budget, which starts for the 2026 fiscal year that's coming October 1st. They haven't done it. Where is it? Where is it? In the air somewhere. So they're holding the American people hostage and creating all this chaos, but what they're not doing is their job. So the majority party is 6 months late with its budget for this year, and the administration has sent no budget for 2026 for Congress to deliberate. Nothing has arrived, and what they've been doing is stopping what we approved to be spent in the year of 2024. Now, this week, the new president's team is flooding the airwaves with the latest scares and diversions to cover up the fact they didn't do their job. They remind me of the old organ grinder routine that had the monkey. Anybody remember that? And the monkey would capture the attention of innocent passersby while shady characters hid in doorways would run and pick their pockets. And that is exactly the routine that's going on. I need a comedian to help me create that routine because for the American people, to show them what's happening. Now this new administration is spinning threats and sending shockwaves, large and small, to harm the American people. And most importantly, they are not serving the American people as they are sworn to do. I'm going to introduce several phenomenal human beings who live and work in this community, but let me just give you a couple examples of calls that we have gotten as a result of this chaos. Major employers across our region are having trouble with contracts from the federal government. They have concerns about making payroll. As also, many of them are innovating new technologies, and they are unable to continue that work. They're pausing the work because they don't know when their federal payments will come down or the tax benefits that they receive as businesses in this country. Number two, the Department of Homeland Security can't hire personnel. We have the most important Homeland Security office over in Ottawa County, and they cannot hire personnel nor disperse equipment for police, firefighters, nor violence against women shelters, different things that they're responsible for. The Department of Energy can't approve low-income heating assistance payments. The Department of Veterans Affairs, and we'll hear more about that in a second, which operates the largest hospital system in the world, can't hire, and they are short on personnel. The Department of Agriculture can't disperse its major nutrition programs for children. The Internal Revenue Service, this is so interesting because this has been a fight in the Congress, can't hire staff in IRS to go after the tax cheats. And guess where most of the tax cheats lie on the income spectrum? at the top. They have fought that with tooth and nail. The Social Security Administration can't hire sufficient staff to meet the rising number of seniors seeking service. Try to go, our local Social Security office, take them rolls, take them coffee. They are the nicest people, and they are so overwhelmed, and they need staff, and they can't get it. Here in the Glass City Metro Park, and I appreciate the Metro Parks allowing us to use this space, where we fought for the $29 million of improvements for Front and Main Street upgrading work, jobs will be idled. That work cannot continue. An additional $20 million we delivered to Vistula and International Park is blowing in the winds of the chaos of this administration. And as our signature community effort to restore the other side of the waterfront is getting derailed as $25 million for the Riverwalk in front of Promenade Park gets sidelined. Now, that doesn't mean it's gone, because we will fight if we have to go on hunger strikes in the Congress of the United States to get that money. These efforts are all bringing economic growth and jobs and unprecedented recovery in the heart of the largest city that I represent. These are all sidelines, and all this is happening because Speaker Johnson can't get his work done, and this is so unfair. The American people are having to pay for this circus. Now, I wanted to ask if it's all right. I'm going to bring our two commissioners up here from Lucas County, and thank you so very, very, very much for taking part from your very busy day to be with us. The new president of the Lucas County Board of Commissioners, Lisa Sebecki, for comments. Thank you for being here, Lisa. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And I was going to call on him separately.
I'm just going to bring him on up. We come as a team. We're a package deal.
For our longstanding commissioner, Pete Gherkin, who has fought for this community his entire life of service.
Along with you.
No, thank you. Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. And I also want to thank our media for showing up today to help us get this very important message out of what's going on into our communities. I want to take you down a little road yesterday. There was an announcement that came out yesterday from the Trump administration about all these things that were going to be frozen and were not going to be happening anymore. What that caused was numerous phone calls to myself. I spent most of the evening last night on the phone with community members, constituents in Lucas County, asking me about, and they were in panic, about the federal funding freeze. These are our Lucas County residents. And I'm going to tell you about one of the stories that I spoke with. This was a mother, a single mother with a couple of kids. One is diabetic, and the other one has asthma. They're on SNAP benefits. They're on Medicaid. And the kids receive free breakfast and lunches 5 days a week at school. She called and said, and Congresswoman, this is very important you hear this, I feel like I've had a heart attack. Think about that for a minute. She felt like she had a heart attack. I reassured her, from what I've been able to see, that the feds have said that the food assistance and Medicaid benefits will continue without interruption. But quite honestly, we're really not sure. But given the action taken yesterday, I'm confident that there aren't going to be more disruptions coming, and the consequences could be dire. Many families are crunching the numbers about what this reality would be if their SNAP and Medicaid benefits disappear. And that reality is grim. For the mother I spoke with, her kids would be hungry. She would no longer afford the insulin and breathing treatments that her children need. She couldn't pick up any more hours at her job, and even if she took a second job, something would have to give. This is just one of the examples, folks, of the phone calls that I received last evening. And it's likely also something else that our staff under Lucas County Jobs and Family Services, that the TANF funds that stands for Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, will be frozen under this direction. Well, in Lucas County, we currently, roughly around 4,000 children in Lucas County who have been in custody of Children's Services and are now living with guardians. This assistance helps with families to help pay for clothes for these children, school supplies for these children, and just the basics essentials of raising a child. And those of you that have children, think about all the things that you purchase and provide for your children. These are the things that are going through people's heads with this chaos that is happening. We applaud these families that do care for these children and take them in. We support them in Lucas County. But these programs have a very real and a very local impact on our families and on our children. Children. Very young people in our communities that have not an opportunity to vote or an opportunity to have a say. And it's not just families that are thrown into uncertainty. These impacts could be severe and have real negative economic consequences. This is going to harm our businesses in our county and in our state, in our nation, our employers, and our workforce in Lucas County. If working families see their budgets shrink, they're spending less at our Krogers. They're not going shopping. They're not visiting our local small businesses or going to eat at our local restaurants. And they certainly are no longer putting money aside for a new or even a used car or even the repairs for a vehicle that they're trying to stash their cash for to repair to continue to be able to go to work. On the other side of the coin, the organizations and programs in Lucas County that receive federal funding both employ a lot of people and provide services that assist businesses that help keep our workforce strong. Freezing this funding and plummeting local programs into uncertainty does nothing but cause chaos and disruption. And this is what they want, is chaos and disruption. But here in Lucas County, with my partner, Commissioner Gerken and Commissioner Lopez, we've been able to weather the economic uncertainty before, brought on by the recession and by the pandemic. And I will reassure you, as Commissioner Gerken stands with me, that we will weather this storm, but we're going to weather it together. We have gained momentum in our workforce and economic development, and the last thing our economy needs is reckless insanity. Thank you.
We've heard a lot of statistics and indications of the harm the chaos has done. I'm going to give you one or two more, then I'm going to ask this community to do something, okay? I was at JFS earlier today with Commissioner Sebecki on a town hall meeting. Let me show you some facts in Lucas County. 1/3 of our county, 1/3 of the population of our county is on Medicaid or Medicare. 1/3. One out of every 3 people in this room. 193 some thousand children receive SNAP and food benefits. Now they'll say, we didn't mean that. You're going to be okay. But how do they get those benefits? We have 300 to 400 employees at JFS whose pay to do that work comes from the federal government through the state to us. You choke off those workers that can't process those applications, the same thing is going to happen. They'll say, well, we didn't target that. But if you pulled the plug on the workforce that delivers those things, you've done the same thing, and let's not be unclear how insidious this is going to get. And I'll give you one more. There has been an epidemic of EBT card fraud. People that live on their EBT card to get their groceries for the month to do it. There's been a massive fraud nationwide here in Lucas County. There has been a program federally to reload those cards temporarily. If somebody goes to the Kroger, uses my EBT card, it's gone, and I'm there on the second day of the month. Last month, they reloaded over $850,000 on that. That money is lost today. So if you get scammed on your EBT card, you're out of luck for a month. That's not fair to do that. We've heard a lot of what's going on. I wanted to take this opportunity to make a challenge to the community. Power seeds nothing without a demand. That's a quote I've learned from Saul Alinsky years ago. He probably got it from others, but power seeds nothing without a demand. They have the power. What demand are we going to make back as a community? I see people here from the mental health community, from the public health community, from the arts community, from the legal community, from the community back there. This is a clarion call that we better stand up and get our act together and not be quiet. What they are counting on is fear. What they're counting on is disparaging us. What they count is us from acting in our own self-best interest for our one portion of this program. If they do that, if we do that, they win. We'll give you I listened to my favorite musical artist on the way over here, Tom Petty, and I played it loud. We won't back down. We better not back down, and we better come together. Everybody that's in this room that has an interest that came out in the cold here, let's start putting our collective voices together and saying, enough's enough. We're not going to take it. These are our rights, and we're not going to give them up. And we're going to support. Congressman Kaptur is one voice there, but when you see 1,000 of us behind you, 1,000 of us behind you saying, go, Marcy, go, that's going to help make a difference. I'm going to implore everybody before they leave here today to think how they can organize, mobilize, and get loud about this. Otherwise, they win.
Let's give them another round of applause. That's the enthusiasm we have. I'm going to ask Holly Matthews, who's the Executive Director of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for Lucas County and Toledo. And I also want to thank David Zavak in our regional office for helping us put this together. David, thank you very much. Holly, thank you for coming. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. As Congresswoman Kaptur said, I'm the Executive Director of the Toledo-Lucas County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I have worked with federal grant funds for over 20 years. A colleague once said to me that I haven't met a grant funded program that I don't like, and I would say after the chaotic week we have had this week that may no longer be true. I am here to share with you the impact that federal grant funds have on our local criminal justice system. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which is also referred to as the CJCC, currently administers $6.2 million in criminal justice federal grant funding for Lucas County. The proposed pause on grant payments would mean the delay and potential loss of $2.5 million, representing 42% of awarded funds to CJCC and subawarded to local nonprofits, courts, jails, and police departments. These funds are used to assist victims of domestic violence, including funding for domestic violence shelters, victim advocates, specialized law enforcement response, and legal support for human trafficking victims. The funding is also used to prevent juveniles from entering the juvenile justice system through culturally specific after-school programs, job readiness training, and diversion programming. Funding is also used to enhance law enforcement operations by purchasing body armor, tasers, and other needed supplies. Additionally, funding is used to enhance reentry services in Lucas County through case management and highlighting the success of Lucas County's continuum of reentry services through participation in a national evaluation of the Innovative Reentry Initiative. New funding that is now on hold would add peer support for individuals participating in adult treatment court, the creation of a co-response team to deflect individuals with behavioral health needs from the criminal justice system, and the expansion of the City of Toledo's gun violence reduction program. Unfortunately, $1.7 million is just a portion of federal funds to support the criminal justice system in Lucas County. This number does not include funds awarded directly by state agencies to Lucas County recipients or direct awards by the Bureau of Justice Assistance to other agencies. The possible pausing of grant awards and grant payments is detrimental to local nonprofit agencies and the local government. Many agencies provided services in Q4 2024 and may not be reimbursed for those services. If you are not aware of this, most federal grant dollars are paid on a reimbursement basis, so agencies are operating off the promise to pay. It is a contract to provide services, and with this pause, we may be violating that contract my agency holds with these agencies. Agencies may have to lay off grant-funded individuals, and some local nonprofits may not be able to withstand a pause in federal funding. This not only has an adverse impact on the agency, but will also have an impact on the local economy and may jeopardize public safety for Lucas County residents. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, very much. Now is Amy Reed in the audience. Amy Reed is the Executive Artistic Director of the Children's Theater Workshop of Toledo. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Representative Kaptur. Thank you all for being here today. One thing that I know as an executive director of a local nonprofit is that we all belong to the network of our community. Everyone who works in these nonprofits lives and thrives here in this greater Toledo area, and that is who we serve. We are not some big oligarchy out in the middle of nowhere making demands on people who we will never actually work with. We live and work here, and these grants are part of an existing infrastructure. Without each other, we cannot thrive. So I'm with the Children's Theater Workshop. We're a nonprofit youth theater. We've been here since 1954. We currently reside at the Collingwood Arts Center in the Old West End. We bought the historic Ohio Theater in the North End, and thanks to the Community Project Fund sponsored by Representative Kaptur, we are restoring the last standing neighborhood theater in Toledo. And arts can sometimes fall to the bottom of priorities. But the fact is that we work with children. We work with vulnerable populations. And in the scope of what we do at the Children's Theater Workshop, we encounter food needs, education needs, the ability to have a strong sense of self and mental wellness, the sense of community, and skills that young people build in order to succeed in the outside world. Our families, our partners, are recipients of SNAP and WIC, Medicaid. Our schools, our partners in Washington local schools and Toledo public schools, they're Title I. We have children who use individualized education plans known as IEPs. They use disability services. They use violent prevention efforts. They use economic development services, immigrant services, refugee services. Because we are a community-centric organization, leveraging federal funds to best serve these vulnerable populations, we interact with the work of all the other institutions here today and the effects that will be disastrous if this funding is lost. Our children are still recovering from the panic. As a person who works in education, social emotional development, I heard over and over and over, our kids are not okay. And as a mom of a child who also has special needs, I can confirm the kids need care. And this is the kind of place where they get this kind of support. These federal funds and these programs the federal funds go to are where these kids get this care. And if we want to put our money literally where our mouth is, we need to continue that good work. The Ohio Theater renovation is a $2.5 million renovation. Okay, it is located in a low to moderate income neighborhood, a predominantly black neighborhood, a historically underserved population, and this is the kind of thing that brings economic development. We are the intersection of all of these vulnerable populations. We see it all. The loss of federal funding upends lifelines for these families, and it destroys necessary infrastructure for the greater Toledo area to thrive. We are the nonprofits that serve these individuals in our community, and they deserve better. Thank you.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We just have this speed bump right now we got to get over. Now I'd like to call on someone who's very well known in our community, Donnie Miller, President and Chief Executive Officer of Neighborhood Health Association, and also has a program on WGTE That is very good. I watch it when I get back from Washington, Donnie, please. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for coming today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for always being in the front of these important, these critical issues for our community. Without your leadership, I just can't imagine where we'd be. Thank you so very much. I'm Donnie Miller. I am the CEO of the Neighborhood Health Association. We're a federally qualified health center in Lucas County, and I'd like to tell you a bit about us. We were lucky last year, more than lucky, to be recognized with 5 national awards for our quality of care. Interestingly enough, 3 of them came from one of our major funders, the Department of Health and Human Services. We operate 13 medical sites, 2 dental clinics, 2 pharmacies, 2 senior centers. We have clinics all over the county that specialize in senior care, homeless health care, substance abuse treatment, mental health, and primary care. All services are provided with the support of federal dollars without cost to anybody who comes to our organizations. Our partnerships in this community are deep, our partnerships are wide, all with the intention of providing health care to anybody without the ability to pay in health in all of its iterations. That's what our goal is. In the 56 years that we've been operating in this community, we are the longest operating federally qualified health center. The Central City residents that founded this organization, something of which I am very, very proud, founded this organization with the belief that health care is a right that is fundamental and it is non-negotiable. We serve anybody who walks through our doors, but we have a specific focus on those who are most vulnerable in this community. For instance, in the African American community, the rate of infant mortality is twice what you will find in larger cities than us. The rate of maternal mortality, that's the rate at which mothers die from giving birth, is growing with numbers that are beyond belief, and nobody can figure out why. Those are the kinds of issues that we address. Black Americans in this country are dying more quickly from any disease that you might imagine. They enter the healthcare system much later in the disease state, and the treatment that they receive in communities in healthcare systems where they are not always welcome shows in the rate of death from those diseases that would be otherwise treatable diseases. In our 30-year partnership with the Area Office on Aging, we work with seniors who, for some reason, have needs that have all of a sudden become invisible to this country. Even though we find seniors who are suffering from enormous rates of homelessness, enormous rates of mental health issues, food insecurity. We have seniors who are sleeping on benches of abandoned houses, on porches of abandoned houses in this country. We have seniors who are suffering from elder abuse at a rate that you might not imagine. We provide those services, all of those services, with support from the federal government. This country promises so much to people who live here and reminds us almost daily that the American dream is right within our reach, even though we see overwhelming evidence of contradiction to that. If that's true, if the American dream is within reach, then we have got to stop politicizing the very thing that helps us reach that dream, and that's health care. Approaching the issue the way that we have seen this issue approached today dehumanizes people in this country. It lessens the value of people in this country. It promotes the idea that some folks are valuable and other folks are expendable. Pulling money from an already underfunded system will contribute to the deaths of people from otherwise treatable illnesses. It'll perpetuate the decrease of services to those very seniors that I talked to you about. It'll encourage the death of an entire race of people. It will lead to unemployment as we are unable to pay those folks who do this very important work. It will disallow us to purchase medical care, medical supplies, dental supplies, all of those things that we need to make sure that our folks are served. In addition, it will make it almost impossible for organizations like ours to purchase medicine. What is the point of going to the doctor if you can't afford the medicine that you need to make you well? Medicine is expensive. We are, through our relationship with the federal government, able to provide medications at a significantly reduced rate than most anybody else because we are serving the most vulnerable in this community. Interference with health care to the folks that we serve will cast this nation as one working in direct contradiction to its mandate that all people be treated equally. The damage, and this is so important to understand, the damage that this process will cause can be irreversible. It will result in people that you know and people that you love dying. You may think that's an overstatement. You may think it's hyperbolic. It is true. It is absolutely true. You've heard from President Sabeki this morning. You've heard from Pete this morning. What they are telling you is absolutely true. What we have today, and there's some confusion, I don't know if you've been listening to the news or not today, but there is some confusion about whether this action it has been rescinded or whether it has not been rescinded. It doesn't really matter. What we know is that this action is clearly on the minds of the people who govern this country. And what we have today is something that we don't normally get, and that's an opportunity to be proactive. As Pete's challenge said, you know, we gotta think about this as a team. We have to think about it as a unit. The cost for not doing that is something that none of us wants on our conscience. Thank you so much for listening.
Think of the thousands of people that you serve every year. You give them a place, you give them help, you heal under very difficult circumstances, and we appreciate your being here with us today so very much. And the chaos will go on because, as I've said, they want to distract from what they're actually doing, and that is reaching in your pocket and transferring that money to the wealthiest people in this country and some of the wealthiest in the world. So they're going to create a lot of chaos, so we have to fight for our day in the sun. And we will do that as a country. We've won battle one. One of the courts has a case that deals with these waivers and so forth, and the Office of Management and Budget inside of the executive branch has sent out a statement which needs clarification, but this will end up in the courts. We'll have to go through all of that, but we are absolutely certain that we will win this fight with the American people behind us. But they have to know what's going on. And you can't be overwhelmed. You're worried about your agency or what this grant is or what that will do. But we don't want, that's important, but we've got to win the big fight to tamp them down in the Congress. And we have some congressional seats that are up this year too in some of the other states. And the margin in the House right now is 217 Republican, 215 Democrat. It is so close. And we hope that we'll be able to catch, elect some others around the country and do something. And maybe some of our Republican allies might decide they might want to become independent. You never know. You never know. But we have to offset this chaos that they are purposely creating because they got other plans. And they don't want you to really see that at all. And that is really frightening because they would literally tip this country even more toward those who have so much. They can't imagine what you deal with every day. They simply can't imagine it. I could say a lot more about that, but we have two final speakers as I understand it, but I'm looking at the county engineer. Were you scheduled to speak? I was told you were not speaking. Is that correct? I don't want to ignore you, but let me think about that. And Let me ask Susan Zaire if she is in the audience. She's come all the way from Erie County to be with us today. Susan is a national advocate for the PACT Act, which she will tell you a moment about. She's the mother-in-law of Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, who she lobbied on behalf of toxic impaired veterans across this country, and over 1 million soldiers have now come in from all of our conflicts into the Department of Veterans Affairs for care as a result of this astounding woman and her family and what she did to change America and benefits for our veterans. Susan, go ahead.
Thank you. It is our nation's obligation to care for our military veterans who willingly went off to war to fight for all of our freedoms. War veterans shouldn't have had to fight the very same government whose flag they went to battle under to get health care for service-connected illnesses, but they did. On July 4th, 2007, this flag right here was flown in my and my husband's honor over military headquarters on Camp Victory in Iraq. This flag was later presented to us by our son-in-law, Heath Robinson, thanking us for our help and support while he was dedicated to caring for injured comrades and saving lives while deployed to Iraq as a combat medic with the Ohio National Guard. 10 years later, upon learning that Heath was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of stage 4 adenocarcinoma lung cancer caused by his exposure to toxic burn pits on Camp Victory, this flag became a symbol of distress for me. Imagine the heartache knowing an American flag was flown in my honor, at the exact location where my daughter's husband and my granddaughter's daddy was poisoned. And then the government this flag represents denied that they poisoned him. The anger and heartache was intensified upon learning that the U.S. Department of Defense claimed that there's no scientific evidence showing a connection between these football field-sized toxic infernos and billowing smoke and the vast amount of rare cancers and lung diseases that war veterans were coming down with. Before the Sergeant First Class, Heath Robinson, honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxins Act, or for short, the PACT Act, was signed into law on August 10, 2022 by President Biden. Almost 80% of burn pit-related claims were being denied by the VA. The burden of proof that their cancers were service-connected and combat-related was put on sick and dying veterans and their families, which was basically an impossible task. I found it difficult to even look at this flag, so I put it back in the back of my closet, making a vow to proudly display my flag again if Congress passes legislation with presumptive benefits for warfighters exposed to toxins. This flag would then represent my success in keeping my promise to Heath, and fulfilling his dying wish was that I didn't stop until we've helped them all. I became an advocate fighting for burn pit veterans in 2017 at the urging of an Iraq War veteran and former staff member, Congresswoman Kaptur. Jacob. Even though the battle was tough at times, when I felt defeated and ready to give up, I persisted alongside my fellow Burn Pits 360 advocates and other veteran organizations. It took all of 5 years of trying to push an ever-enlarging boulder named the PACT Act over the finish line, but we did it. Over 1 million veterans have been helped in the past 2 years, having previously been denied VA claims that were reversed and approved. Attacks on the VA by the current administration and Congress is a betrayal of our promise to care for our veterans. Former VA Secretary Dennis McDonough hired an employee for the sole purpose of implementing the PACT Act in 2022. In December of 2024, this man resigned because he was told he was going to be relieved of his duties by the current administration. This man was working with my daughter on making sure the PACT Act was implemented, working on improvements that can be done at the VA for our veterans and their families. Now that's gone. Through selfless service to our country and sacrifice, our troops have earned their health care. We can't allow the shameless betrayal of the men and women who valiantly fought for all of our freedoms. It's time for all of us to truly support our troops and fight to protect everything they have fought for. Thank you.
Susan, thank you so very much for your relentless work to serve our veterans. And perhaps someone here has found it, but in terms of the Trump family, intergenerationally, I have not found one individual who served in the U.S. military. If you do, please let me know. Now, I don't want to miss anyone. I think Aaron McPardo, if I got it correct, from Habitat for Humanity. All right, very good. Thank you so much for coming and joining us, Aaron. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. Thank you for coming here. Thank you, Congresswoman, for having us and putting this together. This is an important topic. The reality is, at some point in everyone's lives, either you or a loved one has needed help. To get that help, many turn to nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits are able to fill a need when government and businesses just can't. Nonprofits play an essential role in people's lives in our community. We help shelter, feed, treat, educate, support, stabilize, and revitalize our community. But funding doesn't always come easy for us. We hope individuals will give because they believe in our mission. We hope corporations will give because we are in alignment with their corporate social responsibility. And we hope grants are available to help us fund impactful programs. Government grants, in particular, can be transformational gifts that help us make an even bigger impact in our community. And isn't that what we want as taxpayers? Don't we want to provide opportunities for affordable home ownership that stabilize families and create more taxpayers? Don't we want to be able to help seniors afford a roof replacement so they can remain living in their home and in the neighborhood that they grew up in? Don't we want to save our current housing stock or build new to keep our neighborhoods whole and vibrant? That is what the government grants we receive help do. When we received word that this impactful funding might not be available, we immediately began looking at what projects had to be cut. For Maumee Valley Habitat for Humanity, over $2 million in federal funding was immediately at risk. And this grows to over $4 million in funding by the end of the year. Homes will not be built, roofs will not be replaced, and homes will continue to be unsafe for families that live in them. Many of those homes are in these neighborhoods that we are gathered in today. No one wants to make the decision on who does and does not get help. When the need for affordable housing and home repairs is at its highest, now is not the time to disinvest in programs that help make home ownership and home repairs affordable. These cuts will result in more unhoused families in Lucas County and across the country. Everyone benefits when families live in safe, affordable homes. Everyone benefits when families get the help that they need. This is not a partisan issue. Our hope is that the current administration will understand this and continue to fund critical affordable housing work and nonprofit work. If not, the impact will be devastating. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin, very much. And I was privileged to attend the funeral of President Jimmy Carter, who dedicated his retirement, they really weren't retirement, years, and Habitat Humanity was one of his passions. And I can honestly say this because I worked for him. he achieved in retirement what he could not achieve as a member of Congress because of what happened in those days with international affairs and so forth. And he made an imprint across our country and across our world, so I just have to put in a word for elected officials I respect. Finally, I'm going to ask, if I haven't missed anyone, I hope I've called on everyone, but if our county engineer, Mike Panuski, wants to come up and say a word, we're so glad to see you. I thought you were out of town. Great to have you here today. Thank you very much for coming. County engineer for Lucas County, former employee of the Army Corps of Engineers.
I did, back in the day. Thank you, Congresswoman, for the opportunity to speak. I always say that you can always tell the quality of a community by the quality of its infrastructure. And infrastructure is the lifeblood that all of us use to power our industry, for people to get to place, for people to work and make a living. And I was surprised to see that, for most transportation agencies, the majority of our funding comes from the federal government. It's all based on reimbursement. We get reimbursed for the monies that we spend, and we literally employ and enable to employ hundreds of people in Northwest Ohio that are responsible to build our infrastructure and to make them go and to make them a reality. With the pause in the funding that we've seen, I was very surprised to see that most of our transportation programs are included in that list. And for something that's so important to our communities, and even the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Duffy, in his remarks when he was confirmed, acknowledged the importance of funding and transportation infrastructure to our country and how it really impacts how we can be competitive in the world. The last Congress and previously we passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, which essentially was really important and is a generational investment in our infrastructure. And thanks to Congress, people from both parties who saw the need for infrastructure improvement in our communities and in our country, they decided to make a $1 trillion investment over 5 years in our communities to make our infrastructure better, in terms of improved highways, in terms of improved safety, for new techniques to be able to save money and to be able to make our transportation infrastructure go further. With all of that, that investment is now put on pause with the result of the current administration. I hope the Secretary meant what he said, that these types of programs are so vital to our communities that we will continue to move them forward. Here in Northwest Ohio, we were privileged enough to get a grant from the Department of Transportation for almost $25 million for significant safety projects to improve our highway safety across Northwest Ohio. Not just here in Lucas County, but in Wood, Ottawa, and Sandusky counties as well. Transportation does not discriminate between people, doesn't discriminate between where you live. Everybody relies on it. And it's something that's vital for all of us to be able to thrive. And I was very disappointed to see the fact that these very important programs, I think programs that everybody agrees on are necessary to move our community forward and to improve our quality of life, have been put on pause. I hope that the administration takes a look at our programs and sees the good things that it does in our community, how it keeps hundreds of building tradesmen employed, millions of building tradesmen employed across the country, millions of people employed that are the bedrock of our middle class and the bedrock of our prosperity. And without our continued transportation funding, it's hard for us to be able to see us being competitive on a global scale. And with that, thank you, Congresswoman, for your leadership, and thank you to the good people of Northwest Ohio.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. David, have I called on everyone that I should? Do you want to say anything? You don't want to say anything. Well, that's unusual. I know that there may be questions of the press, and from the press, if those who have spoken want to just stay a little bit, maybe you could do one-on-ones. Is that good? And I just want to thank you and reassure you that you matter, the people you serve matter. We cannot be quiet. We have won the first battle. The administration has put a pause on their original decision, but most of all, we have to remember that when the Constitution was written, 3 branches of government were created. The first was the Congress. And the House is the closest to the people. So I feel it incumbent that we do more to elevate to the country from this location and 435 other locations in our nation and the territories that join with us in the House, to let the country know what is happening here. My colleagues are doing that around the country as well this week, and your stories may be picked up in other places. We urge you to do that because this was a really, really good dialogue from those that presented, and to give people in the room confidence that you matter. In the Constitution, in the Article 1, you will see where appropriated dollars that are passed by the Congress have to be spent by the administration. They cannot take those monies. Some of those officials have been on television. They don't even know what they're talking about. They'll end up in the courts and will win eventually. But the point is, it's written right into the Constitution that only Congress has the ability to appropriate and to designate how those dollars are to be spent. They cannot take them away. They have been passed. It's there. It's there to be spent. They're only creating chaos in order to distract everybody and get everybody all involved, and meanwhile, then try to push their tax bills through that will try to take this money and put it in the hands of those who have so much. They just have so much. They really need to spend some time here. I actually sent a note to the president to come to Toledo. I said, would he come to Toledo and visit with me, and I'll show him neighborhoods and places and work that I doubt he's ever seen in his life. So we'll see if he responds. But thank you very, very much for coming. If I'd known there was such a group, I would have served you all coffee. I apologize for not having refreshments here. Thank you very much for coming. Have hope. Have hope in the Constitution and the rule of law of this country. What the president just did by so-called firing the inspector generals in each department, we'll win that fight too, because they are the people who find the crooks. And they aren't partisan, but they make sure that your tax dollars are spent wisely. It was very interesting to me, that was one of the first things that they did, was to take away the inspector generals, who are the smartest accountants and lawyers you will ever meet. And we're going to put them back in position. Okay, so that's going to happen, but they can't dismantle the government of the United States. But let's keep our eye on the main ball, and that is making sure that these funds are restored and able to be spent, and hopefully try to get them to produce a budget that can get a majority of votes in both chambers. Thank you so very, very much for being here today. Thank you. Thank you for coming.